In a small, dusty town called Nazareth, tucked away in the hills of Galilee, lived a young woman whose name would echo through millennia. Mary was an ordinary Jewish girl, probably no older than 14 or 15, living in occupied Roman territory around 2,000 years ago. She came from humble circumstances, engaged to a carpenter named Joseph, with no wealth, no political connections, and no reason to expect that history would remember her name. Yet this teenager from an insignificant village would become the most painted, most sculpted, most honored woman in human history. Her image would adorn countless cathedrals, inspire masterpieces from the greatest artists, and her story would be told in every corner of the globe. But her power didn't come from armies, wealth, or political maneuvering. It came from something far more profound. To understand Mary's unprecedented influence, we must first understand the world she was born into. First-century Judea was a place where women had few rights, little education, and virtually no public voice. They were expected to marry young, bear children, and remain largely invisible in society. Roman occupation made life even harder, with heavy taxation and the constant threat of violence. For a young Jewish woman in this context, the idea of wielding any kind of power seemed impossible. The Gospel of Luke tells us that Mary received a visitor who would change not just her life, but the course of human history. The angel Gabriel appeared to her with a message that must have seemed both terrifying and impossible. She would conceive a child by the Holy Spirit, and this child would be the Son of God, the long-awaited Messiah. Consider the weight of this moment. Mary was unmarried, living in a society where pregnancy outside of marriage could result in death by stoning. She had every reason to refuse, to run, to protect herself, but instead she spoke words that would define her character and her legacy. "Let it be done to me according to your word." This wasn't passive acceptance, it was active consent to a dangerous, uncertain future. It was courage in its purest form. Mary's response reveals the first dimension of her power: moral courage. She chose faith over safety, purpose over comfort. She agreed to bear the weight of scandal, confusion, and potential rejection. Joseph could have divorced her publicly. Her family could have disowned her. Yet she said yes to something greater than herself, demonstrating a strength that transcends physical power. This moment also established Mary's unique theological position. In Christian tradition, she became the Theotokos, the God-bearer, the woman through whom the divine entered human history. No military general, no emperor, no philosopher could claim such a role. She became the bridge between heaven and earth, the human vessel for what billions would come to see as God's ultimate act of love. Mary's pregnancy and the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem are among the most recognized stories in human history. But what's often overlooked is how Mary shaped the man who would become, by any measure, the most influential person who ever lived. As Jesus' mother, she was his first teacher, his nurturer, his guide through childhood and adolescence. In Jewish tradition, mothers held primary responsibility for a child's early education. Mary would have taught Jesus the Hebrew scriptures, the prayers of their faith, the stories of their people. She would have instilled in him the values of compassion, justice, and devotion to God that would later characterize his ministry. When Jesus spoke of God's love, used parables drawn from domestic life, or showed revolutionary compassion for women and the marginalized, we can see Mary's influence. The Gospels give us glimpses of their relationship. At the wedding in Cana, Mary's intercession prompted Jesus' first miracle, turning water into wine. She didn't command him, but her simple statement, "They have no wine," followed by her instruction to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you," shows a mother who understood her son's power and gently guided him toward using it. This is soft power at its finest, influence wielded through relationship and trust rather than force. Mary also demonstrated remarkable strength during the most horrific moment of her life. When Jesus was crucified, most of his disciples fled in fear, but Mary stood at the foot of the cross, witnessing her son's execution. This act of presence in the face of unbearable suffering has resonated across centuries. She became a symbol of maternal love that endures even through death, of faithfulness that doesn't abandon, of strength that shows up even when it cannot save. After Jesus' death and resurrection, Mary's role took on new dimensions. The Book of Acts mentions her among the early Christian community, praying with the apostles. Early Christians began to honor her as the first disciple, the first person to say yes to Christ's mission. But it was in the centuries that followed that Mary's influence truly exploded across the world. By the 4th century, as Christianity became the Roman Empire's official religion, devotion to Mary intensified. The Council of Ephesus in 431 CE officially proclaimed her Theotokos, God-bearer, settling theological debates about Christ's nature and elevating Mary's status. Churches were dedicated to her. Prayers were composed in her honor. Her feast days multiplied across the Christian calendar. What's extraordinary is how this veneration spread across vastly different cultures. In Ethiopia, Mary became Kidest Mariam. In Russia, icons of the Theotokos became central to Orthodox spirituality. In Mexico, she appeared as Our Lady of Guadalupe, speaking Nahuatl and wearing indigenous dress, becoming a powerful symbol for colonized peoples. In the Philippines, devotion to Mary blended with local customs. From Kerala to Korea, from Poland to Peru, Mary was adapted, honored, and loved. This global reach is unprecedented. No other woman in history has been honored in so many languages, depicted in so many artistic styles, or prayed to by so many people across so many centuries. Billions of people across 2 millennia have called her blessed, just as she herself prophesied in the Magnificat. All generations will call me blessed. Walk into almost any major art museum in the world, and you'll find Mary. She has been the subject of more artworks than any other woman in history, perhaps more than any other human being. From Byzantine mosaics to Renaissance masterpieces, from Baroque sculptures to modern paintings, Mary has inspired humanity's greatest artists for 2,000 years. Leonardo da Vinci painted her. So did Michelangelo, Raphael, Caravaggio, El Greco, and Rubens. The Virgin and Child became one of art history's most repeated motifs. But these weren't mere reproductions. Each artist brought their own interpretation, their own understanding of maternal love, divine grace, and human dignity. Through their work, Mary became a mirror reflecting each culture's highest ideals of femininity, motherhood, and sanctity. The Pieta, Michelangelo's sculpture of Mary holding her dead son's body, is considered one of the greatest artworks ever created. Her sorrowful face captures grief so profound it transcends religion or culture. Anyone who has lost someone they love can see themselves in that marble face. This is part of Mary's power. She embodies universal human experiences, making the divine accessible and the eternal immediate. But Mary's influence on art wasn't limited to religious contexts. She established archetypes that persist in secular culture: the devoted mother, the compassionate woman, the figure of mercy and intercession. When we see depictions of maternal sacrifice, feminine strength, or quiet dignity in literature, film, or contemporary art, we're often seeing echoes of 2,000 years of Marian imagery and symbolism. Mary's spiritual influence is staggering in scope. The Catholic Church recognizes her as the Mother of the Church, the Queen of Heaven, and the most powerful intercessor between humanity and God. Millions pray the Rosary daily, meditating on events in her life and asking for her prayers. Shrines dedicated to Mary, from Lourdes to Fatima to Medjugorje, draw millions of pilgrims annually. But her spiritual power extends beyond formal church structures. Throughout history, people in desperate circumstances have turned to Mary. During the Black Death, communities prayed to her for protection. During wars, soldiers carried images of her into battle. During personal crises, countless individuals have whispered prayers to the woman they believe understands suffering because she watched her son die. The reported Marian apparitions, whether one believes in their supernatural origin or not, demonstrate her enduring psychological and spiritual power. At Lourdes in 1858, a young peasant girl named Bernadette reported visions of Mary, and the site became one of Catholicism's most important pilgrimage destinations, visited by millions seeking healing and hope. At Fatima in 1917, 3 shepherd children reported apparitions that have shaped Catholic devotion for over a century. These phenomena reveal something profound about Mary's role in the human imagination and spiritual life. She represents accessibility to the divine, a maternal face of God, someone who understands human suffering because she experienced it herself. In theological terms, she's seen as full of grace, without sin, assumed into heaven, yet still fully human, and therefore able to empathize with human struggles. Mary has been claimed by revolutionaries and conservatives alike, but her own words in the Magnificat reveal a radical message. When she learned of her pregnancy, she sang a song that proclaimed God's preference for the poor and lowly. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. These are revolutionary words, and they've been heard as such throughout history. Liberation theologians in Latin America embraced Mary as a symbol of God's solidarity with the oppressed. During the Salvadoran Civil War, Archbishop Oscar Romero spoke of Mary as standing with the poor. In the Philippines, devotion to Mary fueled resistance to dictatorship. In Poland, the Black Madonna of Czestochowa became a symbol of national identity and resistance against communist rule. Mary's power here is paradoxical. She's embraced by the institutional church, yet her message challenges institutional power. She's seen as gentle and meek, yet her song promises the overthrow of the mighty. She was powerless by worldly standards, yet her story empowered countless others who felt powerless. This tension makes her a uniquely flexible symbol, able to speak to different contexts while maintaining her core identity. Women throughout history have found particular power in Mary's example. In societies that limited women's voices and agency, Mary demonstrated that women could be central to God's plan. Medieval mystics like Hildegard of Bingen drew inspiration from her. Reformers and activists found in her a model of strength disguised as submission. Even in contemporary feminist theology, Mary is being reclaimed as a figure of female autonomy and courage. Let's examine Mary's influence through sheer numbers, because statistics can reveal power that narratives might miss. Christianity is the world's largest religion, with approximately 2.4 billion adherents. Of these, about 1.3 billion are Catholic, and Catholics give Mary a level of veneration that makes her arguably the most honored woman in their faith tradition. Add to this the Orthodox churches with their deep Marian devotion, and Anglican, Lutheran, and other Protestant traditions that maintain some level of Marian respect, and we're talking about billions of people for whom Mary holds spiritual significance. There are thousands of shrines and churches dedicated to Mary worldwide. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City is one of the most visited Catholic pilgrimage sites on Earth, receiving about 20 million visitors annually. Lourdes attracts 6 million pilgrims each year. Fatima draws millions. These numbers dwarf the visitation to sites honoring any other woman in history. Consider the named presence. How many women can you name from 2,000 years ago? How many from the 1st century? For most people, the list is remarkably short. Yet Mary's name is known by billions. It's been the most popular girl's name in numerous languages across numerous centuries. Maria, Marie, Mary, Miriam, Mariam, the variations circle the globe. In terms of cultural production, Mary appears in more books, hymns, prayers, poems, paintings, sculptures, films, and songs than any other woman in history. The Ave Maria has been set to music by hundreds of composers. The Magnificat has been painted, sung, and meditated upon for 2 millennia. If influence is measured by how many human hours have been spent thinking about, praying to, creating art about, or writing about someone, Mary stands alone among women. Mary's influence has shaped politics and nations in ways that might surprise those who see her only as a religious figure. Throughout history, rulers have invoked her protection, nations have consecrated themselves to her care, and political movements have claimed her as their patron. In medieval Europe, kings and queens attributed military victories to Mary's intercession. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571, where Christian forces defeated the Ottoman navy, was credited to prayers to Our Lady of the Rosary, and the victory led to the establishment of the Feast of Our Lady of Victory. The Spanish Armada carried images of Mary into battle. During World War II, both Allied and Axis powers claimed Mary's favor, demonstrating her symbolic power across political divides. National identities have been shaped by Marian devotion. Poland's identity is inseparably linked to the Black Madonna of Częstochowa, who became a symbol of national survival through partitions, wars, and communist rule. Ireland's Catholic identity historically centered on Marian devotion. Mexico's national identity is profoundly shaped by Our Lady of Guadalupe, whose image appeared on the flags of independence fighters and continues to unite the nation across class and ethnic lines. Mary has also provided a language for political protest and resistance. When explicit political speech was dangerous, Marian devotion allowed communities to express identity and resistance. Indigenous peoples in colonized lands could pray to Mary in ways that preserved their own cultural elements while appearing to conform to their colonizers' religion. Women could claim authority through Marian visionaries and devotional practices in societies that otherwise silenced female voices. This political dimension of Mary's power operates subtly. She doesn't command armies herself, but armies march under her banner. She doesn't write constitutions, but nations define themselves through their relationship to her. She doesn't campaign for office, but politicians invoke her name. This indirect political influence, operating through devotion and symbol rather than direct action, has proven more durable than many empires. In a religious tradition that speaks of God primarily in masculine terms, Father, Son, Lord, King, Mary provides something profound, a feminine face through which millions experience the divine. While Catholic and Orthodox theology carefully maintains that Mary is human, not divine, her role in popular piety often functions to provide access to feminine aspects of the sacred. This has theological and psychological significance. Mary embodies divine motherhood, nurturing, compassion, and mercy, qualities that balance the justice, power, and judgment often associated with masculine images of God. For many believers, Mary is approachable in ways that God the Father might not be. She's seen as understanding, gentle, always willing to intercede on behalf of struggling humanity. Psychologists and religious scholars have noted that Marian devotion meets deep human needs for maternal comfort and protection. In societies where earthly mothers might be harsh or absent, Mary becomes the ideal mother, always loving, always forgiving, always protective. This psychological function has contributed to her enduring appeal across vastly different cultural contexts. Feminist theologians have engaged with Mary in complex ways. Some critique traditional Marian theology for promoting passive femininity and subordination. Others reclaim Mary as a strong, autonomous woman who made a radical choice and whose words are recorded in Scripture, whose body was the site of the Incarnation, and whose faithfulness is held up as exemplary. Whether this has empowered or constrained women is debated, but the fact that billions of women have found meaning, comfort, and inspiration in Mary speaks to her enduring power. In our secular age, one might expect Mary's influence to wane, yet she persists in surprising ways. Contemporary artists continue to engage with Marian imagery. Modern theologians continue to write about her. Pilgrimage sites maintain their draw, and in popular culture, Marian references and archetypes appear in unexpected places. Music offers one example. Schubert's Ave Maria remains one of the most performed classical pieces. Contemporary artists across genres, from hip-hop to indie rock, reference Mary in their work, sometimes devotionally, sometimes subversively, but always acknowledging her cultural weight. The very act of subverting or reinterpreting Marian imagery acknowledges her power. You can only subvert something that holds significant meaning. In social movements, Mary continues to appear. Environmental activists have invoked Mary as a figure of care for creation. Immigration rights advocates point to the Holy Family's status as refugees. Peace activists cite her as the Queen of Peace. Pro-life movements center their activism on Marian devotion. Social justice movements in Latin America invoke Mary as standing with the oppressed. Her symbolic flexibility allows diverse groups to claim her for their causes. Academic interest in Mary has intensified. Scholars in religious studies, art history, gender studies, anthropology, and other fields study Marian apparitions, devotional practices, artistic representations, and theological developments. Major universities offer courses on Mary. Academic conferences bring together scholars to discuss her continuing significance. This intellectual engagement demonstrates that Mary remains relevant to understanding history, culture, and religion. Even in secular contexts, Mary's influence persists in unexpected ways. The archetype of the loving, sacrificial mother owes much to 2 millennia of Marian imagery. Language about maternal love, about intercession, about mercy and compassion has been shaped by Marian devotion even for those who know nothing of its origins. Cultural idioms, artistic conventions, and symbolic languages all bear Mary's imprint. After exploring Mary's influence across theology, art, politics, culture, and history, we return to the paradox at her heart. She achieved unparalleled power through apparent powerlessness. She never wrote a book, never led an army, never held political office, never accumulated wealth. By conventional measures of power, military might, political authority, economic control, she had none. Yet her influence exceeds that of emperors and generals whose names have faded from memory. Dynasties rose and fell, empires crumbled to dust, philosophies came and went, but Mary endured, her story told and retold, her image recreated again and again, her name spoken in prayer billions of times across the centuries. This suggests something profound about the nature of power itself. Mary's power is relational, not coercive. It operates through inspiration, not domination. It spreads through voluntary devotion, not forced compliance. It persists through cultural transmission, not military conquest. In this sense, Mary represents a form of power that modernity often overlooks, the power of story, symbol, and spiritual significance. Whether one believes in the supernatural elements of Mary's story or sees her as a purely historical and cultural phenomenon, her impact is undeniable. She has shaped how billions of people understand motherhood, suffering, faith, and hope. She has inspired humanity's greatest artistic achievements. She has provided comfort to the dying, hope to the desperate, and courage to the afraid. Mary's power also lies in her accessibility. Unlike distant deities or unreachable saints, Mary is imagined as intimately involved in human affairs, caring about the small troubles of ordinary people. A mother worried about her sick child, a student facing exams, a soldier in battle, a person facing death. Millions have turned to Mary in these moments, finding in her story a reason to believe that their suffering matters, that they are not alone. Today, 2,000 years after Mary walked the dusty roads of Galilee, her presence remains vibrantly alive. In Rome, millions visit St. Peter's Basilica, where Michelangelo's Pietà continues to move viewers to tears. In Mexico City, pilgrims crawl on their knees to approach the image of Guadalupe. In Lourdes, the sick bathe in waters they believe she blessed. In homes around the world, people pray the rosary, their fingers moving across the beads as they meditate on her life. New shrines continue to be established, new apparitions are reported and investigated, new theological insights into Mary's role continue to develop. New artworks depicting her are created every day. Far from being a relic of the past, Marian devotion remains a living, evolving phenomenon that adapts to each new cultural context while maintaining connection to its ancient roots. The question of why Mary became the most powerful woman in history has multiple answers. Theologically, believers would say she was chosen by God for a unique role. Historically, we can trace how early Christianity elevated her status and how that veneration spread across cultures. Psychologically, we can understand how she fulfills deep human needs for maternal comfort and intercession. Sociologically, we can analyze how institutions and movements have utilized Marian symbolism. But perhaps the deepest answer is this: Mary's story speaks to something universal in human experience. She represents the ordinary person called to extraordinary purpose. She embodies strength found in vulnerability, power expressed through surrender, influence achieved through faithfulness. She faced an impossible situation with courage and trust. She suffered the worst loss a parent can suffer, yet remained faithful. She said yes when no would have been safer. In every generation, people find themselves in situations where they must choose between safety and purpose, between self-preservation and self-giving, between cynicism and faith. Mary's example suggests that choosing the harder path, the path of faith and courage, can lead to significance beyond imagination. A poor teenager from Nazareth became a woman whose image appears in palaces and peasant homes alike, whose name is blessed by billions. If we measure power by force, Mary had none. If we measure it by wealth, she died with nothing. If we measure it by fame during her lifetime, she was unknown outside a small circle. But if we measure power by lasting impact, by how many lives were touched, by how profoundly one person shaped human history, culture, and spirituality, Mary stands without equal among women, and with few equals among all of humanity. Her power was the power of yes, the willingness to embrace a dangerous calling. Her power was the power of presence, standing at the cross when others fled. Her power was the power of faith, trusting in purpose greater than personal safety. Her power was the power of motherhood, raising the child who would change the world. Her power was the power of symbol, becoming an image through which billions could imagine divine love. 2,000 years from now, will our contemporary powerful figures be remembered? Will today's celebrities, politicians, and billionaires have their images painted on cathedral walls? Will billions pray in their names? History suggests not, but Mary's story, having survived 2 millennia, shows every sign of continuing far into the future. This is perhaps the ultimate paradox. The powerful of Mary's time, the Roman emperors, the Jewish high priests, the wealthy aristocrats, are remembered primarily by historians. But Mary, who had no power by their standards, is remembered, loved, and honored by billions. She proves that true power is not found in domination, but in inspiration, not in forcing others, but in drawing them, not in taking, but in giving. The story of Mary is the story of power redefined. It suggests that the meek might indeed inherit the earth, that the last shall be first, that a teenage girl from nowhere can change everything. Whether one approaches her story with religious devotion or simply historical appreciation, the fact remains: Mary of Nazareth became, by any meaningful measure, the most powerful woman in history, not through strength of arms, but through strength of spirit, not through wealth, but through witness, not through command, but through consent to a purpose greater than herself.